We are getting into story. So we are meaning-seeking creatures. As we have these very highly developed minds, we don't just live from survival. We don't just live to survive. We've kind of passed that point of fulfilling our material needs. And so then we live from this narrative in our life. And so your story, the story that you're telling yourself, that we're constantly telling ourselves, is kind of this deeper pattern of our life of why does this happen? Why is my life this way? So we're going to go into a couple of these founding stories and how they apply to how we can live a fulfilling life. So story is not entertainment. It is the invisible structure through which life takes meaning. Joseph Campbell is a researcher, essentially, who came up with the hero's journey, and he is one of the greatest thinkers around stories. And so here, I love this quote where he says that the hero's journey is not a plot. It is the universal grammar of transformation. Every myth across every culture follows the same deep shape: departure, initiation, return. Story is how the psyche maps growth. We are not just here to grow bigger, to go from child to adult. We're really here for our actualization, for kind of filling out this transformation towards our highest potential of self. And then Jung, the psychologist Carl Jung, he also has this quote that myths are the dreams of a culture. They speak the language of the unconscious, archetype, and symbol, because only story can carry what logic cannot hold. To live without myth is to live without depth. We are meaning-seeking creatures. We are constantly looking for what is the larger narrative. Why am I doing what I am doing? And whether you're conscious of it or not, this is really a very strong guiding force in our life in which we justify ourselves, in which we basically reflect to ourselves, are we being good, or is there something that we can do to improve? So I'd like for you to kind of consider that story is not just a fairy tale. It's not just something that we say. It's really this guiding force that influences our decisions to go one way or another. We don't live from facts alone. You live from the story those facts mean. There's so many statistics, but statistics are impactful in the degree that we get meaning out of them. It's from the interpretation of a statistic, of a fact, of our life situation, that it's positive or negative. Another role model, Viktor Frankl, he was in the concentration camps, and he was also a psychologist, but he was looking and he found that some people, they had these stories that were very self-pitying, and those people essentially perished. But those who had an empowering story, one of responsibility, one rooted in meaning, those people survived because they were part of something larger than themselves. Story is that invisible architecture of your life. And there are these shallow stories of noise, speed, consumption, comparison, performance. There's this modern story that you are a consumer, you are the end product, and so it should all be, you should deserve more. But then there's this deeper story, the ones that really move our hearts of meaning, alignment, memory, devotion, love. These are the stories that make us do what is seemingly irrational or not logical, because we're really living out that ethos, that meaning of our life. And so today we're going to go into a couple of deeper stories here to kind of understand what is guiding our life. What are we here to do? So we're going to start with this concept of telos, or teleology. It means the end, the goal, the fulfillment. Life is not random motion, it is ordered towards fulfillment. So we have the potential, the seed, the development, the becoming, and then the actuality, the fulfilled form. You can think of this as an acorn. In the acorn is all of the genetic code of the oak tree. And so like a tree, it has all that genetic, its teleology is to grow, is to keep on becoming that tree, to fulfill its form. So from the acorn, it needs that pressure, that stress to break through the acorn to become that sprawling oak. We are the same way. We have all living beings have this sort of alignment of what they are seeking towards. And so while, a fly matures and reproduces, while a whale also, it's very much of this sort of survival and reproduction. But as meaning-seeking creatures, our fulfillment is not just in the material realm. We are not just meant to come here and reproduce. We are also here to fulfill some sort of calling, some sort of actualization, some sort of individuation. There is something that is calling to us that we want to achieve. And so, how can we sort of understand that? Where does that calling come from? How can we make sense of this? Well, let's go to the ancient Western philosophy. This comes from Plato. He ends his magnus opus, his book, The Republic, with the story of the myth of So is this warrior who goes to the afterlife, but essentially he sees what is progressing on the other side of death. And this is a story, but all of these stories are meant for frameworks for interpretation. So whatever you receive from this, listen to it honestly and kind of challenge your beliefs. But the idea is that a soul goes through judgment and then he chooses. He chooses what life he wants to live. And then he is assigned a daemon, which is basically a guardian that knows what this myth, what the story of his life, what his teleology, what his ultimate goal in this lifetime is. He then bathes in the river of forgetfulness and then is born. So when we're born, the idea from this myth of is that we forget what we are here to do. But there's some part in us, there's this daemon, this quiet whisper that's part of us that is kind of pointing us in that direction, that nudges us one way or another for us to sort of fulfill our potential. And it's not exactly the ego. I would say that it's something that interrupts the ego. It's that quiet voice. You can think of it like your consciousness. But the myth of kind of gives us some grounding in philosophy of, over 2,000 years ago where this came from. So the human life is not merely assigned from the outside, from the conditions in which we are born. There is an active participation and responsibility and a consequence. And the soul, it chose your unique condition. That I was born with type 1 diabetes, that is part of the pain that I need to turn into purpose. So my unique family, my unique place where I was born, my unique characteristics, these are all working towards me fulfilling my potential, fulfilling my teleology. So it's not the ego, it's not an impulse, it's more of a deeper guide. It's a guardian of the life that we chose. There's this beautiful quote by A.H. Almas which says, "Your conflicts, all the difficult things, the problematic situations in your life are not chance or haphazard. They are actually yours, designed specifically for you by a part of you that loves you more than anything else. That part of you loves you so much that it will go to extreme measures to wake you up. It will make you suffer greatly if you don't listen. What else can it do? That is its purpose." And I'd like for us just to return to that coherence breathing right now. Breathing in for 5.5, breathing out for 5.5, and just recognize this part in us, this compulsion that keeps drawing us towards something, that draws us towards embracing the fear to really live our potential. So I'll read this one more time, and you can even close your eyes if you feel comfortable with that. Your choice, your conflicts, all the difficult things, the problematic situations in your life are not chance or haphazard. They are actually yours, designed specifically for you by a part of you that loves you more than anything else. That part of you loves you so much that it will go to extreme measures to wake you up. It will make you suffer greatly if you don't listen. What else can it do? That is its purpose. You're not alone in this. You have guardians. You have this guardian, which is coined the daemon, which can help you. And if you get quiet and if you ask sincerely, you will receive answers. Silence isn't empty. It holds all the answers. So Plato's student, Aristotle, sort of took this in a different way. He coined the term eudaimonia. Eudaimonia essentially means happiness, but it is not hedonistic happiness. It's not pleasure, not comfort. It is really fulfilling happiness, that flourishing through virtue. And so he has this model where it's like we have the habits, the repeated choices that we create that then creates our character, the person that those habits produce. And then the activity of the soul, which is aligned with excellence, with our highest form, that is really the flourishing. So you don't become fulfilled by consuming fulfillment. You become fulfilled by becoming excellent in how you live. And that excellence, there are these, human virtues of we should love our neighbor as ourselves, we should be kind, caring, we should know ourselves. But this also applies to a personal sort of understanding of, with your unique gifts, what is your purpose here? So, um, so yes, essentially the calling is not enough. It's really that you need to be embodied. We're not just theoretical beings, we are social, we are embodied. And so we need to really live that, not just think of it. So going then to Eastern philosophy, there is the whole term of dharma. Dharma is sort of right order, right path, right participation. It is sort of this constant cosmic divine order, but it also applies to yourself. So it's not just your path, it's your path that is imbued, integrated with the whole of life. So it's really your identity with responsibility. So there's yourself, there's your relationships, society, and the cosmos as a large. And dharma is when you are living in alignment with all those different layers. So here we see from a completely different culture, completely different side of the world, that they also have this parallel idea that there is this sort of right way to live in which it is beyond just our own consumption, it's beyond just what we need, but it's really aligned to a larger whole. And then we come to sort of modern Western philosophy of sort of the Christian ethos, that you are given gifts, not for vanity, but for love and service. That in the Christian belief that God gave you specific gifts, specific talents for you to give, for you to share, for you to serve with. And so purpose is not only self-expression, it's not just that authenticity, it's also stewardship, it's also this giving. We have just a couple slides left here, but the shallow story that we are being told in our society, unfortunately, it is one in which we are the end product. It's all about us. And so we're told, consume more, compare more, perform more. This is where you will get your fulfillment. This widget will make you happy. This new car, that's what you need. But the story is shallow and it's loud and it's built on just this constant need to be something that you are not. The deeper story is more quiet, it's more reserved. There's another beautiful quote that the better part of wisdom is restraint. And so while our modern story that is ripe throughout our society is one in which we need constantly more, we are seeing that that is not really leading us to fulfillment. And I believe that that fulfillment comes through community like we are doing here, but it also comes from this deep questioning and knowing of yourself. It is more demanding, it requires and asks more of us, but as we are on this path, I think it's very important that we respect what is that story that we are living out. What really is forming our desires? Is it something that is deep-seated, or is it something that, we are programmed from the advertisements that we live? So awakening, this whole idea of enlightenment is essentially remembering. It's remembering what matters, remembering what you are serving, remembering how you are living. It's not just discovering more, it's about returning and remembering and that remembrance within us. And so oftentimes we look externally because technology in the external world has solved a lot of our problems. It solved this science of achievement so that we can have our material needs met. But that inner story, that grasping that we have for a deeper meaning in life, that really comes from the work that we do internally. So how do we find this story? where does it come from? Like, okay, story is important. It's running my life, and but how do I actually understand this, Damon? Well, your story, your purpose, it leaves tracks. We can look to our past. When did you feel most alive in your childhood? What did you love to do? What really brought you to life? This is a great prompt to journal of when did I feel most alive when I was young. Then we can also look to our desires. What do I truly want? I love this prompt. If you had all of the money, all of the resources, and you could not fail, what would you do with that? What would you want to create in the world? And that sort of kind of takes you out of that scarcity mindset of I need to pay the bills, and it brings you back to this true desire that you have in your heart. And so this can also orient you towards what am I really here to do? And then in the present, the calling, what keeps returning to ask something of you? What are those interruptive thoughts that have an emotional feeling frequency to it where it's like, oh, that just hits me different? What is that one thing that's like, I keep on wanting to do that? For me, it is having in-person retreats. That's something that I keep on being urged to do. And I recognize that I am on that path of creating that, but right now I'm doing my coaching, leading this breath work, doing my breath work coaching. But I see that as sort of on the path of this end result of creating transformative retreats for people to connect more deeply in themselves. And so it doesn't just being aware of your story and what your teleology is, of what your true desire is, doesn't mean that you need to have it now. It just means that if you are aware of it, then you can understand, you can really program your life, program that subconscious narrative in a way that is empowering, that makes the pain make sense, that makes these bottlenecks in your life make sense, that it's actually moving you towards what you are here to do. So when we are self-centered, when you only ask what you want, then we get caught in this vortex loop. But when we ask, what is life asking of me? What is life really putting in front of me? What are the challenges that are being stated here? That really helps us to kind of orient and see the deeper picture beyond the advertisements, beyond the egoic hedonistic desires of what we really desire to do. So a story becomes real when it becomes embodied. First, we get clarity. This is what I want. Then we sort of define it a little bit more. We name it. And then, as well as naming it, there's an essential piece here that's missing, which is feeling it. Really feeling it, because that feeling takes this mental idea and brings it into our body. And then we just repeat it, we rehearse it. One thing that I do with my coaching clients is that we create a self-programming tape where you get very clear on the man or the woman that you are becoming, the person who you are becoming, and you remind yourself of what you are choosing to do, because you're constantly being programmed by society, by all these thoughts and stories. But how much are you actually programming your own unconscious? And then when we're clear about that, when we have that underlying narrative, then it becomes so much easier to live it. It becomes the path of least resistance to do this bigger thing, because ultimately that is where our fulfillment, our eudaimonia, is achieved, by living in true alignment with our purpose. So the shallow story is given to you, but the deeper story, that's something that you must uncover. That's something that you must remember yourself. And then you embody it. So quick little recap. We went over teleology. We have a purpose. We have something that we are seeking for. Plato gives us this idea of the daemon, that there is a guardian, a guide, that even through our forgetfulness, it is urging us towards that truth, towards that fulfillment. Then Aristotle gives us this idea of the eudaimonia, that true fulfillment is in living in accord with that. Dharma kind of expands that out and is a universal principle that we can also embody in our own life. And ultimately, the gift of love, the gifts that we are given by God, these are meant to be shared, not buried and lost, but really shared actively. Your life becomes meaningful when your deepest calling becomes lived from.